1. A study found that students who eat breakfast before exams score 15% higher on average. The school board concluded that providing free breakfast will improve all students' test scores. Which of the following, if true, most weakens this conclusion? A. Students who regularly eat breakfast tend to have more structured home environments and better study habits. B. The cost of providing free breakfast would require reducing funding for after-school tutoring. C. Some students reported feeling too nervous to eat before important exams. D. Breakfast foods high in protein have been shown to improve concentration. 2. All successful lawyers are good communicators. Maria is a good communicator. Therefore, Maria will be a successful lawyer. This argument is flawed because A. It assumes that being a good communicator is the only requirement for success in law. B. It commits the fallacy of affirming the consequent by reversing a conditional statement. C. It fails to consider that Maria might not want to become a lawyer. D. It assumes all good communicators have the same level of ability. 3. A city implemented a ban on plastic bags, and within 6 months, the amount of plastic waste in landfills decreased by 30%. Environmental groups claim this proves plastic bag bans are effective. What assumption underlies this claim? A. The decrease in plastic waste was primarily due to the ban rather than other factors. B. All cities have similar patterns of plastic bag usage. C. Residents did not simply switch to other forms of plastic products. D. The reduction will continue at the same rate indefinitely. 4. Either we must increase funding for public defenders, or innocent people will be wrongly convicted. We cannot allow innocent people to be wrongly convicted. Therefore, we must increase funding for public defenders. This argument is A. Valid because it follows the form of modus tollens. B. Invalid because it presents a false dilemma. C. Valid because it correctly applies disjunctive syllogism. D. Invalid because the conclusion doesn't follow from the premises. 5. A politician argues, my opponent claims to support small businesses, yet she voted against the Small Business Relief Act. This shows she doesn't really care about small business owners. Which of the following best describes why this argument might be flawed? A. It assumes that voting against one particular bill means opposing all support for small businesses. B. It relies on an appeal to emotion rather than logical reasoning. C. It commits an ad hominem fallacy by attacking the opponent personally. D. It uses circular reasoning by assuming what it's trying to prove. 6. Research shows that countries with stricter gun control laws have lower rates of gun violence. An advocate concludes that implementing similar laws in other countries will reduce gun violence there as well. Which factor most needs to be considered? A. Whether cultural, social, and enforcement differences might affect outcomes. B. The exact percentage reduction in gun violence observed. C. Whether gun manufacturers support such legislation. D. The cost of implementing new gun control measures. 7. The defendant must be guilty because he refused to testify in his own defense. An innocent person would have nothing to hide. This reasoning is flawed primarily because A. It ignores the legal right against self-incrimination and strategic legal considerations. B. It assumes all guilty people refuse to testify. C. It fails to consider witness testimony. D. It relies on emotional rather than factual evidence. 8. A study of 100 Harvard Law graduates found that 85% came from households with incomes above $200,000. A researcher concludes that high income is necessary for admission to elite law schools. What is the primary flaw in this reasoning? A. It confuses correlation with causation and ignores other factors like educational resources. B. The sample size is too small to draw any meaningful conclusions. C. It assumes that all law schools have similar admission patterns. D. It fails to consider international students. 9. Violence in films has increased over the past 30 years. During the same period, violent crime has also increased. Therefore, violent films cause violent crime. This argument fails to A. Establish a causal relationship between the two trends and rule out alternative explanations. B. Provide specific statistics about the increase in both variables. C. Consider that correlation always implies some degree of causation. D. Account for the entertainment industry's perspective. 10. A legal reform is proposed that would reduce the burden of proof in civil cases from balance of probabilities to reasonable grounds to suspect. Opponents argue this would lead to unjust verdicts. What key principle underlies this opposition? A. Lower standards of proof may result in defendants being held liable without sufficient evidence. B. The current system is functioning perfectly and needs no changes. C. All civil cases should have the same burden of proof as criminal cases. D. Judges are incapable of applying different standards appropriately. 11. Most people who commit white-collar crimes are educated professionals. Professor Johnson is an educated professional. Therefore, Professor Johnson is likely to commit white-collar crimes. This reasoning is flawed because A. It reverses the logical relationship and assumes that most educated professionals commit such crimes. B. It relies on insufficient statistical data. C. It makes an ad hominem attack against Professor Johnson. D. It assumes education is the only factor in white-collar crime. 12. An editorial states, the proposed law must be unjust because it has been opposed by several prominent human rights organizations. This argument primarily relies on A. Appeal to authority rather than examining the law's actual merits. B. Circular reasoning about what constitutes justice. C. A false dilemma between justice and injustice. D. Statistical evidence about organizational opposition. 13. Two towns implemented different anti-crime measures. Town A increased police presence and saw a 20% reduction in crime. Town B introduced community programs and saw a 25% reduction. A politician argues Town B's approach is superior. What critical information is missing? A. Baseline crime rates, population sizes, and types of crimes in each town. B. The exact number of police officers hired in Town A. C. Public opinion polls about each measure. D. The cost per capita of each program. 14. If the contract was signed under duress, it is not legally binding. The contract is legally binding, therefore it was not signed under duress. This argument is A. Valid following the logical form of modus tollens. B. Invalid because it commits the fallacy of denying the antecedent. C. Invalid because it assumes the contract's binding nature has been proven. D. Valid but unsound because the premises may be false. 15. A criminologist observes that neighborhoods with more police patrols have higher crime rates. She suggests that police presence causes crime. What alternative explanation should be considered? A. Police are deployed to high crime areas, creating a reverse causal relationship. B. Crime statistics are always inaccurate in urban neighborhoods. C. Police officers themselves commit crimes while on patrol. D. Citizens report fewer crimes when police are present. 16. We must either maintain the death penalty or see murder rates skyrocket. Since we don't want murder rates to increase, we must keep the death penalty. This argument exhibits A. False dilemma by suggesting only two options exist. B. Valid deductive reasoning from true premises. C. Circular reasoning by assuming its conclusion. D. Ad populum fallacy by appealing to popular fear. 17. A law firm's recruitment brochure states 95% of our graduates secure employment within 6 months. Upon investigation, this includes any employment, not just legal positions. This is an example of A. Misleading statistics through selective or ambiguous presentation of data. B. Valid advertising because the statement is technically true. C. Irrelevant information that has no bearing on the firm's quality. D. Anecdotal evidence that cannot be verified. 18. The witness testimony must be reliable because she swore an oath to tell the truth before testifying. This reasoning fails to consider A. That oaths don't guarantee accuracy, as witnesses may be mistaken or lying despite the oath. B. The specific content of what the witness testified. C. Whether the witness has a criminal record. D. The length of time the witness was on the stand. 19. Analysis shows that students who attend tutoring sessions before the LNAT score higher than those who don't. A tutor advertises, "Attend our sessions and improve your LNAT score." What assumption must hold for this claim to be justified? A. The tutoring causes the improvement rather than motivated students self-selecting for tutoring. B. All tutoring services are equally effective. C. The LNAT score improvement is guaranteed for every student. D. Students who don't attend tutoring cannot score well. 20. The majority of citizens in a poll supported the new surveillance law. Therefore, the law is morally justified and should be implemented. This argument is weakest because A. Popular opinion doesn't determine moral rightness or the validity of policy. B. The poll might have had a small sample size. C. Citizens are always wrong about complex legal matters. D. The law might be expensive to implement.